What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with a preview for the 3M Classic. Now, this is another brand new event on the PGA Tour. So before we jump into the 3M Classic, let's look back at last week's Rocket Mortgage Classic. I had a hunch that the field would be wide open as the tour went to a brand new course, and that hunch kind of played itself out. You had names like Ted Potter Jr., Wes Roach, Doc Redman, Nate Lashley, all finishing in the top 5. So yeah, I'd say it was wide open. Now, I know none of you rostered Nate Lashley because he wasn't even in the DraftKings player pool. That's right. Don't quote me on this, but I imagine it's the first time a golfer has ever won a PGA Tour event and was not available on DraftKings. I did get a few questions about this during the week, and here's what I can tell you about late ads. DraftKings releases the salaries on Monday, obviously, usually like midday Monday Eastern time. After the Monday qualifiers, those guys are added to the field usually about midday Tuesday. So they'll make an update to the player pool. If you have already registered for a contest, you receive an email that says they are now in the player pool. It's usually like 3 to 5 more golfers. It's how Taylor Gooch got into the player pool last week for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. He was in there on Tuesday. From what I can tell, there is only one update to that player pool. It's the Tuesday update. So if you miss out on that Tuesday update, you're pretty much SOL. You're not going to be in the player pool, which is exactly what happened to Nate Lashley. He was the last man in the field. I think there was a withdrawal, and he was an alternate. It came after DK had already officially updated the field. So that is the reason he was not in the player pool. It's probably the most fair way to do it. There's just one addition to the player pool, and that's it. They're not going to do it 3 or 4 times because if you've already set lineups, you don't want more players added in. So it's probably the most fair way to do it. Unfortunately, we finally had a week, and this is probably never going to happen again, right? That a golfer isn't in the player pool and ends up actually winning it. Quick update on my lineups. Personally, I did have DJ almost everywhere, so him missing the cut pretty much sunk me for the week. I do hope, and I actually got some tweets, a lot of you did benefit from Andrew Landry, who all we wanted him to do was make the cut. He did make the cut. Sepp Straka finished T11. He had a really good week. So we nailed the lower portion of the player pool, kind of whiffed on the top, which is something that might come into play again this week with a brand new course, a brand new event. Might be a lot of names at the top that a lot of the casuals are not familiar with. Real quick, I will do the giveaways. So we've got some winners here. So monthly subscriptions to DFS On Demand, which includes the invite to our private Slack channel. So this week's winners are Jeremy B from YouTube and Muck Shuffle. Cool. From the podcast. So I'll reach out to you guys if I have your information, but if you've won, shoot me an email through the website or DM me on Twitter or send me a message, whatever. I'll get you set up. We'll get you set up for a subscription. So we'll do the same thing again this week. If you would like an opportunity to win a free month to DFS On Demand, that's my site. It's where all the tools that you're going to see on this video are from. There are 2 ways to enter. If you're watching on YouTube, just like the video, make sure you're subscribed, leave a comment below telling me who your favorite player in the $8,000 range is for this week. If you're listening on the podcast, leave me a 5-star review, say something nice. That's it. I'll draw next week, and we'll get y'all set up if you win. Cool. All right. So on to the 3M Classic. I keep wanting to say 3M Challenge like I wanted to say last week. It's TPC Twin Cities. So while this course has never been used on the PGA Tour, it is a regular occurring rotating course on the Champions Tour. Kenny Perry has won here 3 times, for example. Obviously, for the PGA Tour, they're going to make it a bit longer. They're going to narrow the fairways, and it's going to play as a 7,100-yard par 71 with bent grass greens. A few things to note probably here. Lots of elevated greens, so if you miss them, it might be even more difficult to get up and down than usual. The defense for this course lies with a lot of greenside bunkers, and there's a bunch of water lurking all around the course, so there's going to be probably a big number or 2 out there. Finally, 3 of the 4 par 3s are long, baby, over 200 yards. So we'll talk More about that in a second, but let's kick it over to the cheat sheet. There are 5 guys over $10,000 this week, led by Brooks Koepka at that, basically the cap, 11,900. We saw 12,000 last week with DJ. This is really as high as DraftKings usually likes to go. Hideki at 11,100, Jason Day at 10,900, Bryson at 10,500, and Patrick Reed at 10,000 even. This is really interesting. We're stuck in another one of these situations where, hey, it's Brooks Koepka, best player in the field pretty clearly, and it's not a major. And it's really weird to say that, right? But it's kind of bearing itself out, where he just really shows up in majors, whether he doesn't take other events as seriously. I kind of find that hard to believe, but his results just haven't been as good. 57th at the Travelers was not good enough for his price tag, and now we are asking him to go out and do it again. I don't know where I'll land with Koepka. I'm starting to think that if you're rostering him in non-major weeks, you're probably going to be ahead of he's inevitably going to win another non-major event, right? So I feel like if you're rostering him more heavily in some of these non-majors while everyone else is just playing him in majors, you might be a little bit at an advantage, so that when he finally does kind of win one of these, we can put this whole thing to bed and you'll be a week early rather than being a week late. Hideki is really interesting. So I know that everyone is aware of what Hideki's doing and how good he's been, but I don't think they realize how good he's been. So if you just look at his, last 6 starts is what I have here on this recent form. It goes back to that would be the Wells Fargo Championship. 31st, 23rd at the Byron Nelson, 16th at the PGA, 6th at the Memorial, 21st at the US Open, 13th last week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. So just putting himself in a position to contend every single week. Gets another very weak field this week for a chance to go out and capture a win. I imagine he's going to be very popular. I'll jump down below Jason Day for 1 second, because I think that momentum is building on Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed at an even 10,000 has now gone 32nd, 30th, and 5th. We know that he's the type of player that when you get hot, you kind of get scorching hot. You want to be along for the ride. And then Bryson, I think he's also building a little bit of momentum too, coming off the 8th at the Travelers. He's now got, 3 finishes. He missed a bunch of cuts in a row, and now he's got some 3 better finishes recently. So I think those guys are definitely building momentum around the industry, which leaves us with Jason Day, who at 10,900 is basically kind of in that ultimate sandwich pricing, where you can easily go down and get Bryson and Patrick Reed. You can go up and get Brooks Koepka and Hideki Matsuyama if you want to pay for one of those guys, leaving Jason Day kind of stuck here in the middle. So when I start playing GPPs, and it's obviously early in the week, it's Monday, I have not started creating lineups to this point. When I do, I will probably favor Jason Day in some of these GPPs because I think he's the overlooked leverage point. 8th place at the Travelers, 21st at the US Open. No reason to suspect he wouldn't fit a course that's going to be a par 71, which usually lends itself to better approach players. He's one of the best short game players on earth. Jason Day is going to be just fine in almost every tournament you roster him in. To get him in a weak field where he might be the lowest owned of these 5 guys is really, really intriguing. I'm dying to see what Tony Finau comes in ownership-wise this week. Again, a big sandwich where Rory Sabatini, who's been so good all year long for his price, now he's 9,500. Joaquin Niemann finally cashes in his first 2 top 5s in a row in his career. He's 9,300. You know he's going to be super popular. Below Tony Finau is Victor Hovland, 9,100. You know he's going to be popular. The kid's an absolute stud coming off a 13th place finish last week. You have Sungjae, you have Streelman right below there. There's other guys that you can play, and you leave Tony at $9,200, missing 3 straight cuts, and you're like, what the heck do I do with this guy? I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but he is long-term way better than the rest of these guys in this range. Yes, he has missed 3 straight cuts. It was the Memorial, it was the US Open. You can kind of give him a pass there. Those are 2 obviously very difficult courses. You get a little sideways and things can go bad in a hurry. Misses the cut at the Travelers. Do we continue just to expect him to miss cut after cut after cut? Probably not. Just the 4 starts ago, he was 2nd at the Charles Schwab. So this stuff can turn around pretty quickly. So I'll be very interested to see what his number comes in at. And then I think you get a little bit of a dead zone under 9,000. So these guys in the eights, which I asked you to say which of them is your favorite, because I'm very interested in it, is kind of a dead zone to me. So Streelman's up there at the top. He'll probably be popular. Keegan played well his last time out at the Travelers, but then you get Ryan Moore, who I continue to like, missed the cut last week. Kevin Na missed the cut at the U.S. Open, but his start before that, he won. Like, he's a guy you might just want to fire up. Like, this is a really interesting spot. I don't think anybody's really going to go back to Lashley after the win. So there's some more established names here: Piercy, Hadwin, Harmon, Berger, and you're just trying to find which one of those guys that you're willing to roster. So I'm probably leaning a bit on Moore and Na. I'm interested in, well, that's probably it in that range. Let's see. I could probably get to, well, he's in the sevens. I was going to say Colin Morikawa, who, has now made 3 straight cuts. He's officially a professional, faded a little bit on the weekend at the Travelers, but, played well the other days. And, he's someone that I think is interesting at $7,900, but he's not even in that range that we're discussing. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to flip over to a different tool here because I want to show you, where I think some of the value lies. And what you're looking at now is the live leaderboard from last week. So this updates throughout the tournament with strokes gain numbers and DraftKings information and all that stuff. So what you'll notice, and the reason that, there's a lot of reasons I won't be going back to Nate Lashley, but the big one is that he gained 9.3 strokes putting last week. That's more than he actually gained tee to green. So when you put them together, he just runs away with it, which is exactly what he did. So he gained 8 strokes tee to green. He was 3rd in the field last week, and then he just absolutely putted the lights out. I'm sure he was by far the best putter in the field. Oh, I'm sorry, he wasn't. Brian Stewart gained 10 strokes, but Lashley gaining 9 is a huge number. So put those together, and you win the golf tournament. Other guys that kind of stand out to me a bit here. So here's Sungjae, finished 21st, was, what is that, like 6th or 7th best tee to green. He did lose strokes putting. If he can turn that around this week, he might be interesting. Where else did I thought there was a couple other guys here. Here's Neiman, who's historically not a good putter. He did gain 3 strokes last week. He's done this more and more often recently. If he can continue to keep it going, there's a reason to invest in him. I just think he's going to be a little bit popular. All right, let's go to the strokes gain tool, because I think this is where it's really, really easy to visualize the differences between some of these players. So let's go to tee to green and see who kind of stands out amongst their peers tee to green here. And Doc Redman, who is, the name that I keep seeing on Twitter, he's 7,200 this week. I only have 4 rounds of strokes gain data on him, so he stands out tee to green because of his tournament last week. That's the only data I have on him. Victor Hovland, he's getting more and more data. He's now up to 14 rounds, 1.5 strokes gained per round. That's up there towards the top of the player pool as well. Hideki leads the way, Brooks Koepka leads the way, and you basically couldn't go wrong with Jason Day's here, Bryson's here, Streelman's here, all that. So plenty of options. But here's where I really want to go, because I think there's a couple different ways we can slice this, and a lot of times in these videos I wait too long to get to this tool, and I don't spend enough time on it. So this is the who's hot and who's not of this tournament. So we compare their last 30 days to their 2019 baseline, and we kind of look for some discrepancies. So if I just want to look at who the hottest players are tee to green, Victor Hovland is one of them, but again, only a 14 round sample size there. So the first of the guys that actually has a decent sample size is Troy Merritt, believe it or not. Troy Merritt tee to green in the last 30 days is averaging 1.6 strokes per round, which is a full stroke better than his season average. And that even comes with the pitiful Saturday that he had at the Travelers, which he lost 3.5 strokes, and I think he ended up getting MDF'd. So he did not even play on Sunday. But Merritt is playing above his head tee to green right now. Other guys, Kevin Streelman pops up on this list, about 3/4 of a stroke per round better than his season average. Sepp Straka, this is the part of the reason why he popped up in a lot of my lineups, or all my lineups last week, basically. And we talked about him, and I bet him and stuff like that, is because he again just continues to play great. He's about 1.25 strokes over his 2019 season average in the last 30 days. He's red hot tee to green. Likely some regression coming, but if you just say, hey, if he can keep it going 4 more rounds, Straka's probably going to put himself in contention a bit. And then what I really want to show you too is this. So we'll flip to putting. So now this kind of flips a little bit. And the guys with the bigger differentiator, the biggest differences are probably the guys that you expect to come back to earth a little bit because putting is so volatile. Like Luke List, I cannot believe he's not won a golf tournament because he's gaining a stroke and a half more per round in the last 30 days than he usually does, and he just has not had the tee to green game to go with it. It's actually unbelievable. But these are the guys that you would say, okay, this is probably not sustainable. Someone like a Tom Lovelady who's gaining almost a stroke and a half on his baseline. Bo Hosser, a stroke and a quarter. Brendan Steele, over a stroke per round. Like these guys, this is probably not sustainable. If you flip this though, and you look at the negative guys, and because you kind of always expect this to get back to the mean, right? And this is again why I bet Sung Kang and played him last week. And despite him not showing up, he is at least a golfer that has room to get back to his ceiling, right? So he's almost losing 2 strokes per round to his season baseline, which is really, really hard to imagine. So he's a target player that I would probably go for. All right, and then finally, let's run over to the course key stats tool. And unfortunately, 2 weeks in a row, this course has never been used on the PGA Tour, so I don't have my great regression model to show you. So very excited to get back to that. I think John Deere next week should be great to rock and roll. So we're doing a lot more speculating this week than we would any other week, but it's still a good place to find value. So let's just go to what I think, and what is kind of shown week in, week out to be one of the most important stats, and it's strokes gained approach. It's those second shot players, almost no matter what other conditions there are the guys you usually want to target. So Hideki leads the way here. Then you get Keegan, which is no surprise. And I will say this. I mean, if you look at the other names on the list, the young guys who are more expensive than Keegan, even Tony Finau, like Keegan shouldn't be 8,800. I know he's super volatile. I get it. I know he can be the first round leader and miss the cut. I get it. But he should not be $8,800 when, some of these younger guys who have played 14 rounds are, 9,800, or Joaquin Niemann's more expensive, or Rory Sabatini's more expensive. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Keegan has a much better resume than these guys. Taylor Gooch, who was the late add and played well last week, right back at it, 7,600 this week. Brooks Koepka and then Nate Lashley round out the strokes gained approach numbers for the top 5. And then also kind of to go hand in hand with that, I look at the par 4 numbers. If it was a par 70, there'd be one more par 4, but it is a par 71. So this is a spot where you can kind of look at par 4s. Nate Lashley did a lot of damage last week. He gets his average down to 3.95. That leads the way. And then you get Koepka, Piercy, Cameron Tringale, who's now played well 2 weeks in a row, for $7,700. If you think he can keep that hot hand going, consider Tringale. And then Jason Day at 10,009 is the last guy who rounds out the par 4. All right, there you have it. Let me know who your favorite player in the $8,000 range is to get into the draws for subscriptions to DFSOnDemand.com. Feel free to tweet me. It's at DFSOnDemand, or leave a comment below. Talk to you guys soon. See ya.